Welcome to the 5th season of the Coaching Cast, your working from home club. We're here to remind you that you're not alone, that we're in this together, all striving to make sense of today's working world. Regardless of where you're working right now, or whatever you do as a career, we've got something for you here at the Coaching Cast.
I'm Lisa, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader, and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo which suffocates rather than advocates.
And I'm Susie, coach and trainer at Future You Business Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting a 2-year-old who doesn't take too kindly to being questioned.
In this podcast, we explore all things impacting you, our CBBs, at work right now, presenting topics each episode, which we will discuss with some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints, and tips for you to take away and try for yourself, as well as having a few laughs along the way, of course. We really hope you enjoy listening.
Today's episode is all about friendships at work. We're going to explore how friendship can impact our happiness at work, what friendships at work can look like, the benefits and struggles in forming these now we are working in a hybrid world. So stay with us and enjoy. So Lisa, before we get into this week's episode, how are you doing?
I am great. For anyone who is watching the episode, you will see that I am wearing a beanie hat, which is not common. I don't always show up on the podcast wearing some form of headwear, but I am today because Susie kindly sent me this as a gift. So it is a We Are Feel Good Club beanie hat, which I particularly love. It's in yellow. I actually think it suits me, actually, this colour, Susie. Good pick, I think. But yeah, so Susie bought it for me as a present and it arrived in the post yesterday and I'm thrilled. It came with a notebook as well. And if anyone doesn't know who We Are Feel Good Club are, they are an amazing cafe, wellbeing, mental health space in Manchester run by a wonderful couple who I particularly like and follow. So I was over the moon to get some of their merch, as well as my coaching cast stickers. Finally.
Big reveal.
Big reveal.
Lisa has got her coaching cast mug and so have I. So we are officially twinning on the merch today. Woo!
Yeah, so finally, now that I'm back in the UK, I've been able to pick up my sticker pack, which I have poorly applied to this mug. Like, look at it, it looks on the wall.
Yeah, and everyone in our secrets. Stop. No, it's high quality merch.
It looks good though, I think. I feel very loose women.
I know. Well, that's how I felt when I first got my mug back in season 4. So the merch featured heavily in season 4 and continues to still go into season 5. And we'll take that. But I'm glad you were in like your beanie hat. You look very cool. Like you just kind of do podcasting in your beanie hat every day.
You know, I'm such a hipster. This is what all the hipsters do. They record all of their content wearing their beanies. Yeah. I have been wearing it a lot.
Ultra cool, and I'm glad you like it. And we do share quite a lot of content, don't we, on our Instagram page from the Feel Good Club. So if you're intrigued, we follow them, we share quite a lot of content. So if you're intrigued about finding out more, it's just a brilliant place in Manchester city centre. Yes. I've never actually been, but I've heard a lot about it.
We're going. Really now I'm back. We need to go. And I'm going to go wearing my hat. I'd be like,
maybe we could do a podcast from there. That would be cool.
Oh, that would be cool. I'll have to talk to them. See. But yeah, so no, you made my day yesterday. What a lovely start to a Monday. But no, other than that, pretty good. Obviously, it was the Jubilee weekend celebrations, which I landed into from my trip. So it was nice to come back to so much activity and, you know, patriotism. I was like, whoa. Because I remember the last celebration for the Queen's reign in 2012, and that was like a big year as well because it was the year of the Olympics and I lived in London, and I remember me and my mates just getting straight into the whole spirit of it all. It was amazing. And you know, we went to loads of like proper like East End London pubs, and me and my friend Siobhan went to the Mall and saw the whole procession and saw the red arrows fly over and saw the Queen on the balcony. So that's very cool. But yeah, so that was 10 years ago. I was like, God, that makes me feel old. But yeah, amazing for this time around. But I have to admit, I have barely watched anything. I haven't kept up to date with any of the activities on the TV. I got involved in the local village event, which was quite sweet, actually. It was really nice. Although my husband's response was it was boring, which, delightful. But he's still on the high of, us being in Africa and things. And apparently this is, too small fry, but I think he's just being mean. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
I was going to say, was it like a welcome back party for you?
Well, quite. And it did feel like that, actually, because all the neighbours were like, oh, you're back. Nice to see you. And I was like, hey, hi there.
Strolling in like, hi, yeah,
Yeah.
just for me. Oh, it's great to be back.
Don't care after last weekend, that'll be it. I'll just be back at the bottom of the pile. But it was nice to feel like a celebrity for a day. So yeah, no, it's good. How about yourself? Did you get up to much for the old Platty Jubes celebration?
Platty Jubes. Yeah, so there was a lot going on in my village as well. Fair play to the local council, because they parish council, they actually did quite a lot of events. So on the Thursday morning, we obviously were podcast recording. So we started off our weekend with a little record, because we'd just been away. So we kind of did it on the Thursday. And then we went to the pub in the afternoon with some friends who live in our village. That was really cool. And our in our village, they put on buses. So there's about 7 pubs in our village. It's
a lot of pubs.
For
a village. Bloody
yeah.
hell.
And they are all pretty decent pubs as well. Anyway, they put on these little bus routes. So you could get on the bus and it would drop you off at the different pubs, and you could kind of get on a little tour.
Cool. That was really cool.
So that was really good. And then on the Friday, they did a little family treasure hunt on one of the fields. My little boy he had no idea. The clues were so hard. I did it with him and I was like, I don't know what half these answers are. But he was at that age where he couldn't read. He just wanted to hold the piece of paper and a pencil and just kind of walk around the field feeling like he was doing something different. So yeah, he got well into that, enjoyed that. And then on the Saturday, I think they had a community football match. And then on the Sunday, they had a street party at the village hall. But the weather was awful here on Sunday. It was really rainy. So I don't think many people went. We didn't go, unfortunately.
Typical British summertime lets everyone down.
I know.
We had a bit of rain, but actually it held off. So we did quite well. It rained more early in the morning. So actually by the time the barbecue had got going at 2, it was fine.
Cool. So
good times.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Mom.
Yes, congratulations, Mom, on 70 years in the
Incredible.
job. It was a good reign, that. It's good tenure.
Good bloody hell. She must have the longest tenure of anyone in any job. 70 years. That's insane. I thought I was good to stay somewhere. Actually, what's the longest you've ever stayed working for someone?
Well, working for someone or working in the same job?
Working for the same company, working for the same organisation.
12 years.
See? That is bloody long as well. I think the longest I've ever done in one long go, I've done 2 stints. I've gone a bit back and forth, but the longest stint I've done is 7. 7 years is my longest.
Okay.
So yeah, 12, bloody hell, top trumps. Topped it, but 70 years. But I see your point. The Queen, 70 years in role, the same one.
Yeah,
that is called growing and flexing and adapting with the role as it's moved on, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. So you may have noticed as well that I don't have my podcasting gear on today. So I've got no mic, no headphone. That is because my mic has stopped working. Couldn't get it to turn on when I went to record this morning. Drama, not what you need as you're about to start a podcast record. So first off, apologies if I sound a bit weird. Hopefully it's a one-off and the sound quality. Dave can do his magic in the background and make me sound as decent as Lisa. But yeah, I've got no equipment.
You sound great. I don't think you can tell.
Okay.
You sound great. It's all good.
All right, I take that. I take it. Also, what's gone on this weekend, I just have to mention, is for those CBeebies who are parents, they may or may not have yet experienced the transition from cot to bed in terms of a child. This was a big event in our house this week, alongside Platty Jubes. My son transferred from his cot, where he's been since he was 6 months old, to his first toddler bed. And it is in the shape of a racing car, like a Ferrari racing car. It's red.
Bless him.
He chose it. He's very excited. It's nicknamed the car bed. So it was also a form of bribery for about a month. So I was kind of like, well, you need to be listening well, because otherwise you can't get a car bed. Or you need to eat your dinner so you can have a car bed. But now he's got the car bed. I would definitely say I've used that way too much as the carrot, because now I'd say his behaviour's probably got really bad. And he's like, well, I've got a car bed now, so I don't need to listen anymore. Don't need to eat my dinner anymore. So I've got to find a new version of the car bed.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, so that's been interesting, trying to get him. He's fallen out of it a couple of times. He also accidentally headbutted it the other day because he got so excited. And he's now got a big egg on his head. I was like, oh. That is a form I'm going to have to fill out this week in childcare for sure. But yeah, so the big transition.
Oh, what a moment.
I know.
What a moment. I love the fact he's already manipulated it though. So already he's a quick learner. He's going to be smart. He's already worked out that, he's got the price. So he doesn't need to behave anymore.
Yeah.
And now it means you're just going to keep setting the bar higher. What's better than a car bed to a 2-year-old?
I know.
Oh,
I know.
God.
I know. Maybe I need to review. I've gone back to the sticker chart. So I've kind of said for being a good boy, you get stickers, and then you get a certain number of stickers, you can choose a present. That's what I've gone back to. But yeah, we're kind of really, really excelled on the car bed front. But big milestone this weekend, alongside obviously the Queen's
yeah, 2 major events happened this weekend.
No BBC coverage in terms of the car bed transition, unfortunately. Well, but there we go.
The film crews were otherwise occupied, unfortunately.
Right, well, from car beds and the Platinum Jubilee, should we just start talking about friendships at work?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's go. A 2021 study of employees by UK-based company Wild Goose found that 57% of workers say that having a work best friend makes their work more enjoyable, and 22% argue it makes them more productive. Those are some pretty powerful stats. So it's fair to say friendship is critical to business performance and our happiness at work. But things have changed. Post-pandemic, we are now working in a hybrid world, leading to a stark rise in remote work friendships. So, Lisa, what has your experience been of friendship at work?
Overall, I would say really good, I think. This is that moment when you're like, yeah, I've got loads of mates at work. I've had loads. And then everyone's sitting there listening going, she's a twat. Well, I think, you're a good example of the fact that I actually managed to make a friend at work. We met at work. We're friends, I think. Well, you bought me a present. I think that's a good sign. So you're a good demonstration of the fact that I am capable of forging strong relationships at work, I think. That in the fact that we're still together, and we haven't actually technically contractually worked together for over 2 years now.
We haven't broken up yet.
No, we haven't broken up yet. So I would say overall really positive. And actually a lot of the work friends that I made over the years are still friends now. So I think my closest friends that I made were those that I made, well, actually one of my best friends who was a bridesmaid at my wedding was someone I met at work when I, straight from university, met from work.
Oh,
so
cool.
We've been friends now since 2006 or something. And actually they were my manager for a while. And then I progressed and got promoted, and then we were peers for a very long time. But and we're still best mates now, and we haven't worked together since 2012, I think, 10 years, something like that. So and actually they're the reason I met my husband. So they moved into the village where Dom had bought the pub when he had the pub, and I went to stay with them, and they introduced me to him and the rest is history. So, I mean, that is a bloody good friend. That's a good work friend, surely. That's a good demonstration of a decent work relationship. Someone that actually helps you find a husband. So, yeah. So I'd say that was a good indication. But yeah, I mean, I think when I thought about this a bit more, I was thinking, well, how can you answer it a little bit more in depth than just, yeah, pretty good, thanks. And I thought, do you know what? Actually, those work friendships that I have who have been the most valuable and who potentially I still have now, but even those maybe who I would say maybe I've lost touch with them, but I still think of them like really fondly. They are individuals who really helped me in my growth and like my personal development over that whole period. Because when I think about it, I started work straight from university. I was 21 and I was still a child, really. And so much of my 20s, the main thing that I had was my job and my career and how I was growing my career. But it was the time when I was making so many mistakes, whether it be work related or personal. Bit of a roller coaster, probably quite a bit of a car crash a lot of the time.
Not a car bed, hopefully.
No, there's quite a lot of workplace shame stories in those 20s that are just not appropriate to be shared on this podcast. And I think without my work friendships, I don't know how well I would have got through it. You know, they really helped to like support me and yeah, probably became quite a crutch a lot of the time. As well as like my own best mates. I mean, I'm still best friends with the girls I went to school with when I was 11, so I've always been fortunate. I've got a good friendship circle. But yeah, I do think back and think, God, a lot of my really close work friendships are those that really helped me to grow and develop and mature. And yeah, it's quite interesting subject. I think this one, I thought it was quite straightforward. That was what I thought when we said, right, we're going to have a discussion around this as a topic. I was like, what's there to talk about? There's not much, but actually that's not true at all. There's quite a lot to talk about. What about you? What's your experience?
Well, I think to kind of build off that, the piece around actually like helping you in the moment, so supporting you, you know, helping your growth, but also having a laugh and like making it lighthearted, because we spend a lot of time at work. I think spend like a third of our lives at work.
I feel like we say that, but we don't necessarily acknowledge what we're saying. Like that is actually a fact. Like it's true.
It is true. And it is a lot of time. And no words can describe how much time that is, like in the extent that it really impacts our lives. So actually the people we build relationships with, friendships with in that environment are really like important and critical to our happiness. Of course they are, because we spend so much time in that environment. So actually, like my experience of it has been, you know, certainly people where we've connected maybe over like a shared experience or I don't know, a shared interest, for example. But then also I found like people who then make things lighthearted, fun, enjoyable, have a bit of humour sprinkled into day-to-day things, because sometimes a lot of things you're doing, you know, can be quite challenging. Can be tricky, you know, might involve problem solving, hard, difficult conversations, etc. So having a bit of kind of lightheartedness within that as well makes it just a lot more enjoyable, and also the people you trust and enjoy being around. So I've kind of had a fairly similar experience in that I've, you know, also got some great friends through my working life so far. Again, I've, you know, that's how you and I met in the workplace. And, you know, I'm not saying you should be sharing BFF necklaces. You know, do you remember those little like heart necklaces?
Oh, I love those.
Yeah. Do you remember when you were
Yeah, they're so cute. I love them.
Oh, God, so cute. So, yeah, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you need to be dishing them out to everybody that you kind of have an interaction with in the workplace. But I think having a few friends kind of there to kind of help support you, but also just have a bit of lightheartedness is really, really important. And it's difficult and it's challenging, actually, I found, when you work for yourself as well, which I know a few CBs do. Not then having that opportunity, you have to kind of go and seek that more consciously, more proactively, if that's important to you, is definitely hard. And I found that a little bit. I'm very lucky that a a couple of my friends are self-employed and they don't live that far from me. So actually there's quite a good opportunity there for us to meet up, work, etc., and kind of support each other, because we're all in the same kind of situation. But if you don't have that, that can be quite challenging for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I've spoken about that in my own personal experience. And I know I found that much more challenging when I'm away. So when I'm in South Africa, I find that a lot more isolating, not just because of the lack of proximity to people, but also I'm on a different time zone and I'm in a completely different place. So that relatability piece goes as well. And that's really important to me, in that I like to be able to connect with people and be able to relate and, you know, have shared experiences. Well, if I'm somewhere completely different and, you know, like in January, you've got snow and I've got like boiling sunshine, 30 degrees, you know, I'm not relatable anymore, because I'm She's
lost her relatability, everybody.
I've lost my relatability. But I think it's interesting what you talk about in terms of the relationships you forge at work and the circumstances in which you do it. And you talked about like the challenging. I don't think there are many relationships that I can think of, other than those in the work context, where you are thrown together with people not of your making necessarily. It's not necessarily of your choice, where you're having to deal with high levels of pressure, stress, challenge together and find a way through it successfully. And for me, that successfully part is also inclusive of how you're all feeling by the end of it and the experiences that you've had. Because I think those relationships that I've got that I really treasure from a work perspective are those where, and this sounds a little bit dramatic, it's not, you know, it's not exactly like we were in Saving Private Ryan, but like where you had to like overcome some big thing together and you all got down in the dirt and you know, you really like forged together as a team, and like you went through the highs and the lows. There was spats and there was sharp words and you like nearly bit each other's heads off, and maybe you did, but then you all made up at the end, and then you went out for a massive beer afterwards and you celebrated the success of it all, you know, with the soundtrack of some sort of like epic war movie in the background.
To be honest with you, this just sounds like an episode of Below Deck. I'll be honest.
Okay, fair enough. I think I've barely watched Below Deck, but you know what I mean? Like that kind of experience.
Yes.
There aren't that many people in your life, I don't think, that you can say, other than those that you deal with in your work career and relationships, where you go through stuff like that together. And where actually I know I felt really proud of what was achieved. And some of that has included the way in which my friendships have grown or the team has developed and we've come together. Some of that has formed part of what I'm really proud of what we've achieved, especially when I know that we've had to work through differences, conflicts, disagreements. That made it even more gritty and brilliant and wonderful when actually at the end you were like, oh, well done everyone, like we got through that. Like, yes, having a laugh is part of it. And actually, to be honest, one of my coping mechanisms was always like, let's try and make a laugh out of this, or someone crack a joke just to like cut the like atmosphere. But I don't know, I felt like even just talking about it makes me feel excited again and reminds me of like why I enjoyed working so much in some of those environments.
So do you think you know we should be friends with colleagues and line managers?
Oh hell yeah, without a doubt. Why would you not? As you said, like I do think, well, and as you and I have just articulated, some of the friendships that we have today and who we hold closely to ourselves are those with people that we worked with. And that's enough to say, well, that's why you should be friends with people at work, because actually, yes, of course, you've got a job to do. And it is about showing up every day, doing your job, working. But so many wonderful things can come out of that are not just the work itself. It's what's created as a result of it. And friendships, I think, are such a big part of it. And, you know, I got a husband, so that's a reason you should be friends with colleagues and line managers, if nothing else. Although some people would say that that's probably against the contract. Because there are plenty of people out there who've married their co-workers, aren't there?
There are.
Not me. But I just think when it comes to like being friends with like colleagues and line managers, I think the only thing I would ever say, and I think it's personally true of all relationships, is that at the end of the day, there's still an element of respecting boundaries. And I think that's true of all relationships. I don't think that's specific to a work context necessarily, but I think it's just keeping that in mind when you are at work, to recognize, actually, why are we here? We have got a reason to be here. There is a purpose. And as much as it would be in lots of ways for me to chatter away to, you know, my mate Emma by the coffee machine for an hour, it's not actually what I'm being paid for. And and that's the point, I suppose. It's like, you are being paid to be there, so you do have to respect that. I think there's also just at times remembering, as I said, I call it that boundary line, and knowing how to manage yourself to it, which, I mean, I say this as someone who's not very good at it, because I don't really have a boundary. So the workplace was always an interesting space for me anyway, which was recognizing like when to share, when not to share, when to speak, when not to speak. But yeah, I mean, like, I suppose the flip side is probably asking, like, why should you not be friends with your colleagues and your line managers?
My experience as well, a slightly different perspective, because in my corporate career, I spent a lot of time away from home. I would spend on average 2 nights a week away from home in a hotel, like staying in hotels, alongside quite a lot of my colleagues in sales. And I have to say that some evenings when I was like alone in a random hotel near Heathrow Terminal 5, actually, I really valued those friendships and connections that I formed outside of the working day. Because, you know, yes, when you're in the working day, you have to be mindful that you're being paid to do a job, but actually in the evening, you're not. So that's actually my time. And not everyone is the same, but I found a huge amount of comfort and joy from spending time with people outside of work. And that's why a lot of my work friendships were created, definitely. And people who I still speak to today and actually would love to spend more time with, but I don't anymore because neither of us are kind of in that space now. And actually, without those friendships there, I think I probably would have done that. I'll call it the regime because I can't think of a better way of doing it. But at the time, I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that every week? But at the time, I think that would have made my experience of the regime a lot more challenging and a lot more difficult. So I really valued those friendships at that moment in time, because I used to hate going to a dreary hotel on my own after a full day of work and going to my room and literally like eating in my bedroom, sitting there on my own, watching TV in those 4 walls for however many nights a month or a week. Like, it gets pretty lonely. Well, for me anyway, because I'm quite social and get my energy from people. So yeah, those friendships were critical at that point for me.
Yeah. No, which is such a valid point as well, in terms of actually in those evenings, that's your time. So actually it is about, well, how do you look after yourself in those times and the things that you want to do? I was actually the opposite. I hardly ever actually stayed because I could drive home and I preferred to. Yeah. But when I did, I actually really enjoyed the luxury of being on my own. So I was like the opposite. I was like, yes, I'm going to go to the gym and then I'm going to go back to my room and I'm just going to eat whatever I want in my room, watching whatever TV I want. Uninterrupted by my husband, although he did, because he used to phone me, so then he used to disrupt the program viewing anyway. But you know, and I would just sit there and just indulge and love the fact that I just had an evening on my own.
Yeah, where I was like annoying person. I was like, do you want to come for a drink? A lot of people were the same. A lot of people just wanted their like alone time, which obviously I understand, but I was not one of them.
Yeah, a drink is fun.
Now, as a mum, God, I'd be there every night. Like, yes, I'm spending some time on my mum, like on my own. Now, like back then, I wasn't. So I had no idea of that boundary.
Yeah, totally.
So, do you think any of your friendships at work have ever held you back?
So this is a weird one for me. Yes and no. And actually the one I'm referring to when I even say that is the same one. So I'm going to tell a story to bring this to life. So it was a long time ago now, like years ago. And I had been identified as an individual who was, well, I suppose who had the potential to grow, to progress, and to be promoted to the next level of senior management in an organization I worked for. So I was already managing people, but this was to go up to the next level of management, and it would have been responsible for, you know, managers of people. So I myself would have been a sort of a more senior leadership role. And as part of this identification from this individual, who at the time was my head of department, I was given more focus and attention to support my development. So I was given more opportunities to grow. And I think through that time, like, I already had a good relationship with my my manager, and this just felt a sort of an evolution of that relationship. But what ended up happening was I didn't get the promotion that came up. So despite the investment, the attention, I think my assumption that I was being readied to take on the opportunity when it came about, when it actually happened, I was bypassed. And I felt at the time like really, I suppose it sounds a bit strong, but I did feel quite betrayed actually. But it was because I fixated too much on the fact that I thought we were friends. And I felt betrayed more on that level. I felt betrayed from a personal, you know, friendship perspective than an actual work one. Because when I took time to reflect on it, I was in agreement with who they gave the position to. Actually, the person who took the role was a lot more experienced than I was. They were already operating at the level. They'd just taken some time out from the business and come back. And that kind of made sense as well from a, you know, I don't know whether moral's the right word, but, you know, from a legislative point of view, there was a role that they needed to come back to. There was one, and it was, they were already at that level and they needed to be brought back into the business. So that made sense. That was the right thing to do, not moving me up into it.
Yeah.
As well as the fact that realistically, I don't think I was actually ready. But it was a really interesting experience because my initial reaction was very much one of hurt, pain. As I said, like, I'm using really heavy words like betrayal, but that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
But actually, once I digested it, I realized it was the right decision for the business. It was the right decision for the team. It was the right decision for this individual who was coming back, who I then ended up working really closely with and learned huge amounts from. So actually, it was the right move for everybody. It was the right move actually for me too. And it gave me such a strong lesson in recognizing relationships at work. It really made me realize, do you know what? Yes, you may be friends with that person. And actually what has happened in this scenario actually didn't change that. We stayed friends. They continued to actually be my head of department, and they continued to nurture and grow me. They still invested in me. They didn't stop. And I continued to get really great exposure and learning, so that when there was then the next promotion opportunity that came up, and which was in a completely different department, actually, I went for it. I got interviewed and I got the position and I got promoted, and it was at the right time. What it really taught me was fundamentally in a work context, especially when you become friends, I think, with senior managers or individuals who are of a higher position than you, first and foremost, they have a job to do, and that's their priority. And it's not your friendship. It never will be, because that's not why they're here. And that's not what enables the success of a business. It's not that everyone's mates.
Yeah.
Because you can never be objective, not completely, in a friendship or in any relationship. You'll always be subjective in a relationship if that's what you focus in on first. And it was a really tough lesson. Like, as I said, I was really hurt for a while, but I internalized all of that, which is generally what I can do that anyway, because I will always look at myself first before anybody else to see, well, where does the fault lie? And I always question my reaction to the point where I then devalue the reaction I'm having. It doesn't always go in my favor. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a silly thing to do, but it's the way in which I cope with things. And because I know I can control myself, I can't control what's going on with other people. And it was the way that I could like move forward productively. But it was a really good experience. That's why I suppose I answer the question the way I do. It's like, did it hold me back? It did, but not really. Like, not in the end. Like, it felt like it did at the time.
Yeah.
But actually, it really did work out for the best overall. So I think it was just a really interesting one. And I do you know what? And I watched for years other people make those mistakes in their own circumstances, with their own, relationships at work and stuff. And just always had a bit of this like knowing kind of like, yeah, I've been there. And I was like, I know how it feels, but I think this is what you've got to think about, and this is what you've got to remember. And I did have other people that I worked with over the years who really didn't. And when that situation happened to them, we're all different. We all react differently. They made decisions such as, I'm changing my job, I'm leaving the company. Like, it was that drastic. And I totally understand why that happens, because it is hurtful, it's painful. But I do think it's always thinking about, well, how can you manage that for yourself so that you make that decision? It's such a tough one, because I know as a manager of people, it's always been something I've been mindful as well, which is that I want to connect with you, I want to support you, I want us to develop a relationship, but let's always be clear what we're here to do. Like, never get away from the purpose of what we're here to do.
Yeah. I felt like, so I like what you just said there about like how you felt at the time, like in terms of you felt like it held you back at the time, because I had a situation where I was friends with somebody. We were operating in the same team, so we were colleagues, and I got on with them really well, had a laugh with them, had a lot of mutual interests. Like, they were a really nice person. I enjoyed spending time with them. And then I got promoted to cover a role, and all of a sudden I became their line manager. And for me, found that probably more challenging than the person did. I haven't actually ever spoken to them about it, but I don't think they did anyway. I'm assuming that. But for me, I actually found that really like a bit more kind of hard to get my head around and how I was going to navigate that, especially when it came to giving feedback. Because we've talked about feedback on this podcast before. There's a skill to it, there's an art to it. If it's done wrong, it can really have an impact on someone. If it's done right, it can really have an impact on someone. A lot of people are scared of it. And at that time, I probably was quite scared of it. I hadn't really done very much of it in my career, but also I was doubly scared of it because I didn't want to do it wrong, because I was giving it to my friend.
Yeah, that is tough.
So the importance of getting that conversation right, structuring it in the right way, approaching it in the right way, using the right language, examples, etc., was even more important. And I think that I suppose kind of emphasis I put on myself held me back, because I remember at the time thinking like, I don't want to get this wrong. And so I kind of overthought it, and I probably prepared too much, to the point where I kind of lost my flow, lost what I was trying to say, probably wasn't as clear as I would have been if I'd kind of just let myself be a bit more natural and free flowing. The kind of situation got in my mind, and it held me back at that moment in time. So it's a really interesting one when I was in that situation. I can remember at the time feeling quite conflicted about it.
It's such a difficult scenario though. Like, I've been in the same situation before as well, and I think, as you describe it, what gets in our way is ourselves. Like, it's actually awkward for everybody involved. I think it can be awkward just as awkward for the individual who is now being managed by their friend.
Exactly.
It changes the dynamic, but I do know that I have also tripped up because I've overthought things, and I've got into my head so much that I've become, well, kind of paralyzed by it. And so I've stopped doing things that I naturally would have done and that I know to be right and to work, because I've got too stuck on the notion of, well, this is different and it won't work as well this time because they're my friend. And it is a really tricky one. And I know when I've managed individuals historically where it's happened to them, it's one of the most problematic areas they've experienced and that I've had to support and coach them through, because it's such a change in dynamic for everybody. But I do think one of the best ways to deal with it is just to say that and just to call it out. It's like, let's just there's an elephant in the room. Let's just remove it and just say straight away, look, this is weird, isn't it? Because one minute we were friends and colleagues and now I'm your manager. But I think it's like just calling it as it is and talking it through in terms of, right, so how are we going to make this work for the both of us? Because it's a change for both of us. I think sometimes, well, it's not sometimes, I think it's such a big thing to do with confidence. And I know when I was a very junior manager, I didn't have any of that around managing people. And I felt even getting promoted to a manager meant that I had to already know how to do everything that I was doing. But I wasn't really supported to think any different either, I would add. It was very much like, well, you've been promoted now. That means you must be very good at what you're doing and can do. So off you go, you know what you're doing. And I think even that dynamic of changing relationships, it was in that category. It was like, well, of course you know what you're doing, and of course you can handle this change and transition, and now you're just going to be a manager. So yesterday you were this, and today you can do it straight away. Without any kind of acknowledgement of like, no, you've just gone through a massive change as well. Like, why is no one acknowledging this and helping you and supporting you and empathizing a little bit with that, to go, well, this is weird for you, isn't it? But no,
and I think the same point relates as well. Like, if you are a small business owner, for example, and you suddenly, I don't know, start working with somebody you've got a friendship with, whether you bring them on as a freelancer or you're working with somebody in your network, now, like more frequently, day to day, etc. Like, the same principles apply. Like, you should still call that out. And actually, it's okay that this might be a bit tricky, or you might feel a bit weird about the situation to start with. Like, that's totally normal. And that's not kind of exclusive to perhaps working in an organization. And it is it is a tricky one to kind of unpick and navigate your way through. And I certainly found that in my experience. So what would you say then are some of your suggestions to help our CBBs to form friendships in now more of a hybrid world? Because obviously pre-pandemic, we were a bit more traditional in the way that we were working. A lot of these friendships were formed face-to-face in an office environment. Yes, a lot of people are still in the office, but a lot of people are now doing more of this hybrid setup. So if that's the case, what would be some of your suggestions for the CBBs?
So I think, we've talked about friendships, and I would like to hope that people have picked up on the fact that we do believe that they're important in work on many different levels and how they've benefited us. Even those awkward situations I've grown and learned so much from. I think all human encounter in all of its wonderful forms can teach you something. So I hope that's what people have taken away. And I think when it comes to, therefore, in building and forging relationships in today's current environment, I think they're even more important than they ever have been, because we've never been so separate and segregated. So if hybrid is the way forward, if that's what's going to be the permanent, I think many people have adapted to this point already. But I think anyone who is still navigating this, and I think I'm in this category because I am working on my own and relationships are so important to me. So I've had to start investing more of my time and effort into actually creating them then, now that I'm on my own. So I would say a big part of that is probably what I've just said, which is make an effort. Like, I've actually wrote it down because I know it sounds really simple, but it's not if you don't remember and do it. Like, I think that's the thing when you're on your own at home. You can easily do nothing, go nowhere, talk to no one. Because you don't have to. Like, everything you do, you can just do on your laptop or your phone or whatever. So I know that I've started to think, well, if I feel a bit lonely and if I want to meet more people and help grow my network and my relationships and use that to help with my own personal growth and help grow my business, and well, then I actually have to go find them, because they're not going to find me sitting in this room on my own at the top of my house in the middle of the Cotswolds. They don't even know I'm here. So make an effort is my first one. And I think that means, in terms of if you're working by yourself, seek out groups that you can join and spend time in, both virtual and physical, because that's what I'm starting to do. I'm like, oh, there's some physical ones I can go to now because they're starting to open up again, and find out ways that I can meet up with people. I think if you're in an organization, the same applies. You've got to make an effort. So that means you need to make time to actually spend time with people. If that's Zoom or on the phone or whatever it is, just identify someone that you'd like to know a bit more about or you'd like to learn more about. And you can make the connection through whether it be a project or they've got a skill set that you want to borrow or utilize, or you want to learn something. But I think make an effort is a big one. And the second one that supports that is make the time then. Like, you've got to set time aside, I think, to do it. So that actually, you know, you don't have the luxury of just like bumping into people anymore.
Yeah. Or even if you do, like when you're in the days you are perhaps are in an office setting, prioritize it then, that actually I am going to strike up some friendly conversation with somebody over lunch or over coffee, or invite someone to like catch up or whatever it is. Like, because that might be your opportunity to do that face to face.
Yeah.
And actually, when I'm at home, working from home by myself, like that's not the right environment to do that, or that doesn't work for me. So actually that's okay. And I'm going to focus in on it when I am face to face in an office setting. So I think it's a really, important thing about making that effort, prioritizing that time. It's like any relationship, friendships involve effort.
Yeah.
And actually,
and two-way.
It's two-way. And also I think to be just really clear, we're not preaching that, you need to be friends with loads of people at work. You might be like, actually, I don't want any friends at work. That's absolutely fine. It's personal preference, whatever works for you and you want at work. Again, like I'm saying, I'm not saying you need to be dishing out friendship necklaces to everyone. Although if anybody wants to dish out friendship necklace to me, I am open to this. Yeah. But that aside, you just got to find what's right for you, and that kind of balance for sure.
Just don't be a martyr. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
you can be that way, but then don't moan if like you're lonely or you don't get any help with anything, or you don't understand why no one's recognizing you, or
yeah, absolutely.
It's because you're not visible. So simple as that.
Maybe we need like a little thing here, so we could have like connect, chat, have a coffee. So like, I don't know, the 3 C's: connect, chat, and have a coffee. You can't go far wrong if that's what you want to do.
Good idea.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, we hope you have had a bit of inspiration from our discussion today on friendships at work. It's a really interesting topic, something that we haven't really discussed about before. And I know there are other resources available. There's quite a lot of TED Talks on this area as well, and I'm sure there are other podcasts too which cover this. But yeah, go and check them out and see what your kind of view is and give it a go. It's now time for this week's Workplace Shame. This is where we share an embarrassing workplace story from one of our listeners, or from us if times are desperate, which today they are. So Lisa has kindly offered to share a workplace shame story, which I think she wishes was anonymous.
Yes, but it's not. So it's my story. Brilliant. So this is for you, CBBS. Just remember this. Remember this when you're listening to it. but I've taken one for the team. So now it's time for someone else to like offer a story up. Right. Okay, here we go. So this was a number of years ago now. Sadly, not that many though, not realistically, less than 10. I was working in an organisation in quite a, high responsibility role. I had a project team that had quite an important project to deliver on behalf of the organisation. So it was high profile enough. People were aware of it, especially in my local office. And this particular occasion, someone was leaving the business. I can't remember who, but I was always up for a social, especially because at the time, if I remember, I was single. So even more so because, what else was I going to do with my evenings? And it was a Friday night. And I had gone out for, I think it was someone in sales. I was always going out with the sales team because my department worked very closely with theirs. And in that we were all customer facing as well, but we would go out quite a lot. They were a good crack and I used to hang out with them quite a lot. So anyway, one of them was leaving. So I went along, had a really bloody good time, which was standard because I always quite enjoyed a few sherbets or too many sherbets. And so we were out. Anyway, I got carried away in this particular sort of barn, sort of nightclub. It was a bar club or whatever they call it. I haven't been to one of them for such a long time. I don't even know if that's what the kids still call it, but that's what it was. I went along. I got so drunk that I fell over a couple of times inside the bar to the point where the bouncers asked me to leave. And by asked, I'm pretty certain there probably wasn't a lot of verbal communication. It was probably a bit more manhandling. And actually it was myself and one of my other work colleagues who were asked to leave at the same time. So we left. And as if that wasn't bad enough, this was a work night out and I was quite drunk and not behaving particularly well, and then got asked to leave this like bar in front of everybody. I then proceeded to walk down the road with the intention of, well, I'd like to say go home, but I'm pretty certain I was heading towards a kebab van of some sort. And I was chatting away to my friend, and my friend, he was very tall. So I was looking up at him, wasn't really looking where I was going. And I rolled my ankle off the pavement and I was wearing high heels and my ankle snapped. I mean, you could hear it and I still remember the pain. And considering how many sherbets I'd had, that kind of gives you a sense of how painful it was. And what happened was I actually fractured my ankle. I had a spiral fracture and required an ambulance to take me to the hospital, where they took me to A&E. I sat there on my own, a little bit merry, not really knowing what's going on, not able to walk or do anything because of my ankle and being in complete agony. So what happened was I ended up, because I lived on my own at the time in the city where I was working. And so I didn't have anyone at home who could like sort me out. So I ended up finding one of my best mates. They had to like come, who lived local-ish. They had to come over with their boyfriend to come and like see if I was all right and help me out. But in the meantime, I proceeded to phone pretty much all my best mates, some of which live abroad. So I spoke to my best mate in New York, who was like, hey, I don't really know what you think I can do. Yeah, it wasn't great. I ended up having to have a plate and 8 screws inserted into that.
Oh my God, really? Have you still got them in now?
I've still got them. Yeah, I still have that souvenir, including a lovely scar. Yeah, not great. I ended up having to have surgery straight away the next morning, by which point I was sober, but not hungover because they put me on a drip. That stuff is magic.
Yeah. Hydration is key.
Instant hydration, no hangover, but I was nil by mouth. So I had the driest mouth ever. I mean, everyone knows when you've had too much drink, how dehydrated you feel, how dry your mouth is. Yeah, well, that was my mouth times 1,000. I couldn't drink anything, couldn't eat anything. And then had to go on to major operation, have surgery. Yeah, so what happened from that? I ended up having to be rescued by my dad and taken back to my hometown, like 3 hours south. and live at home with my dad and my stepmom for 6 weeks.
Oh, Robin came to save you.
Yeah, Robin came to save me, and I worked from home from there for 6 weeks, managing my team. And to be fair, like my whole team and my boss actually were amazing. Everyone was really, really like sympathetic and caring and supportive, and there were no judgments, which, bearing in mind the subject of this episode, which is about friendships, was actually quite apt, because it was a demonstration of what great friendships I actually had at work at the time. So the thing that, despite the fact that this person of seniority who had quite a lot of responsibility had managed to go out and get smashed and fall over and break her ankle on a work night, no one gave me any jip. I think people felt I'd suffered enough, so that was kind.
Wow, fair play.
So yeah, so there's my workplace shame, another one. So
well, we've got to keep them coming, Lisa. I know
quite.
I know you've got a few more in that
up.
back catalogue. Ready?
Well, there are some that are just never going to come out. No way. CBB, step up.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you have a workplace shame story, which means that Lisa and I don't have to share another one of ours in our back catalogue, then please get in touch. You can email us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk. You can message us on Instagram by searching for The Coaching Cast. And don't worry, unlike Lisa and I, or your workplace shame stories will be anonymous.
It's now time for Bullshit Bingo, where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which make us cringe. Our Bullshit Bingo for today's episode came from one of you, our lovely CBBs, and it is, I don't have the bandwidth. So, Suze, you're going to dissect this one. What do you think?
So, I bloody love this one. This is a good one. I know I say that every week, but this has topped it this week. It's a great one. I don't have the bandwidth. So first of all, if I heard someone say this to me in a work context, my immediate response would be, you are an idiot. That would be the first thing I would think. Bandwidth. So I immediately think of bandwidth to do with the internet. I don't know why that is. I think if bandwidth's got something to do with like modems and stuff, and like Wi-Fi. Don't know.
Bandwidth.
Anyway.
So it's not got anything to do with an elastic band? Like bandwidth? No, I don't know. I know what it means in terms of, it's when people say they don't have the capacity, don't they?
It's capacity. So yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm going with some form of like tech analogy.
Yeah, to be fair, it could be to do with like broadband.
Yeah, but come on, I don't have the bandwidth, as if you would ever use this. And if you do, I'm sorry, but you need to check yourself, because this is not approach. This is totes and approach, this one. But it's a great one for Bullshit Bingo.
It is a good one. I don't have the bandwidth. It's the sort of thing, like at the end of the day, someone saying to you essentially no, because that's what this is, isn't it? This is a no, just dressed up in some form of like, it's a cushioned no. Like you need to get worried when Arthur, your little boy, starts saying, Mummy, I don't have the bandwidth. Because he's saying no in a different form now, because he's that advanced, your child.
Oh, God.
But if it's not more, it's already grating and annoying when someone says no, when you're asking them for some support or help or, you know, whatever. But then when they dress it up in this way and go, yeah, I don't have the bandwidth, it's so annoying. It's really grating. You're like, what?
Yeah, like I would be like so confused, I think, if somebody said this to me to start off with, and then I would do my usual thing when these were like sentences or words are so abstract, my mind would wander and I'd start thinking about bandwidth in terms of the internet and modems and Wi-Fi. I know I would, and that's not helpful either. So yeah, just all in all, it's a great Bullshit Bingo.
It is a great Bullshit Bingo.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Thanks for this one, CBB.
It's really good. So CBBs, if you've got a great Bullshit Bingo that you would love us to share here on the Coaching Cast, then please do send it through to us. You can email it to hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can message us on Instagram by searching for The Coaching Cast.
We are coming to the end of today's episode, where we have discussed friendships at work. Our tips and recommendations from today's episode are: number one, just make an effort. Make an effort to reach out, connect, have a chat with somebody. Number two, make the time. So prioritize it. So if you are in the office on a day, perhaps make the time to go and have lunch with one of your colleagues or somebody, or equally a friend, and just make that time, prioritize it. And number three, don't forget the 3 C's, which I came up with impromptu in the episode, which are connect, chat, and coffee, although other hot drinks are available. If you remember those 3 C's, you may not go far wrong in building those friendships at work. Some self-coaching questions to ask yourself are: number one, where are you now with your work friendships? Number two, how do these make you feel? And number three, what is the first step you can take to focus on your friendships at work? Don't worry if you can't remember all of these. All of our tips and recommendations will be on our Instagram page at The Coaching Cast this week.
We hope you enjoyed today and have some new ideas to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we would love to hear from you. You can contact us in 3 ways: on email at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, on Instagram at thecoachingcast, and finally, you can contact us through our website, thecoachingcast.co.uk.
Your support helps more than you know. So if you like what you've heard today and would like to help us to continue to grow this podcast, please do us a favor. Leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. You have no idea how important these are. Hit subscribe wherever you listen and give us a follow on Instagram at The Coaching Cast. Don't forget, you can also watch each episode on our YouTube channel by searching for The Coaching Cast, where today you can see Lisa in her lovely brand new beanie hat.
Yes, I love wearing it. So in next week's episode, we will be talking about goal setting and how to do it well. So Susie and I are coaches. We deal with goals a lot. We talk about them a lot. But actually, next week, we're going to talk to you about them and about how you can actually put them together. So tune in.
We both love music and use it to motivate and energize us. So we like to finish each episode with our personal song recommendation, giving you positivity and energy as you launch into your next meeting. It's my choice this week, and I've been inspired by the Platinum Jubilee concert this weekend. So I have chosen Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. What an absolute tune.
I love this song.
Brilliant.
I love Alicia Keys.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for listening, CBBs. Have a great week. And remember, you've got this.